Namathu Ratanatayassa. May I pay homage to Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. My respect goes to my parents and my teachers. Hello, good evening, everyone. So today is Friday, Friday the 6th of August, 2021. It's been a couple of weeks that we have been having this personal journey with the different members of our community, and so we are here again today with David. David Briggs. So let me bring him in. Okay. So hello, David.
Hello, Jean. Good
evening. How are
good
you?
evening, everyone.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, Jean. It's been a busy day, very wet, so a good day for working on the computer and doing things indoors.
So just to let you all know that David has been in with our temple for many years. So he was born in England and lived in Scotland for over 30 years. And recently, about few years, he has been running some mindfulness meditations. So rather than me saying, David, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit? Where were you born? What did you do? And why you moved to Scotland? How you come to Buddhism?
Okay, Jean, thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me to say a little bit about my personal journey. And I guess the first thing is just to say, yes, I was born in Liverpool. I had, I guess, what many would consider a typical English middle class upbringing, although my parents were from both very different backgrounds. So I was born in Liverpool. My father was a pharmacist. Worked both in pharmacy shops, preparing and giving medicines. When the days where they were all mixed and by hand using mortar and pestle. And he worked in not just in Liverpool and around Liverpool, but in for a while in the Nigeria and in Trinidad in the Caribbean, bringing community pharmacy to the small towns and villages. My grandfather, actually, on my father's side, was a priest, believe it or not, a Church of England priest. And he wasn't very happy when my father said he would not be a priest. He wanted to be a pharmacist.
Oh, okay.
My mother was also born in Liverpool, from Liverpool, and she was a housewife. And And my grandmother on my mother's side um, was a very hard-working woman in a more poor area of Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was born in Liverpool in what they called at that time the posh end of Liverpool, the north end of Liverpool, where there was a very nice
Okay.
beach,
Uh-huh.
and you could watch the ships going backwards and forwards up the river, sometimes as many as 50, 60, 70, 80 ships a day going backwards and
Oh.
forwards from all over the world. Um,
Mm.
what else? So I went through Church of England primary school, and all the primary schools in those days were linked to churches in your local area. And so inevitably, I had quite a good voice at that time, which I don't have now. So apart from being part of the school, it meant I also had to sing in the choir at the school and the church, which was great fun.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed that. And my parents always made sure I had a good education. I can't remember having to worry about anything,
Mm.
except how many hours we could spend in the summer on the beach. And
Mm.
I went through school education. In England, there were A levels. I went to college and university. I went to university in Manchester. And back then, in certainly the type of family I was brought up in, going from school to university was almost assumed that that's what would happen.
Mm.
I never even thought about it. It was just what you did. But while I was at school, the school I went to had a cadet force. Cadet forces were an opportunity to experience life in the RAF, in the Army, in the Navy, to get some training, and in my case, learning to fly. So when I went to university after I'd been in the cadet force at school, I joined I went to university as a sponsored RAF cadet.
Mm.
So at weekends we learnt to fly and go on summer training camps in the UK and abroad. And that was actually a wonderful experience because it gave us training in resilience and independence, facing lots of different challenges that you wouldn't normally face as a 16, 17, 18-year-old. And so it was natural for me after I came out of university, I went straight into the RAF to train on bigger planes. And just very quickly to allow time for other things, although I did my training on jet aircraft, I had a medical problem which led me to blackout to do with my sinuses. And in those days, they didn't give you time, a year or two to get over it. They simply had lots of other people to choose from.
Okay.
So at the age of 22, I think it was 22, I was married at that time, just had a child. I had to find another career, and that's how I went into human resource management. At one time when I was looking for jobs after I came out of the RAF, believe it or not, I was offered a job as a pharmaceutical salesman.
Okay.
Visiting.
You must be experienced one, and people will be liking you at this moment.
Well, it was a turning point in my life because um, the recruiter for the pharmaceutical company, I was applying for any job I could at the time.
Mm.
I was married and we had a child, and I needed to earn money to put a roof over our heads. And at that time, I was offered this job. It wasn't really one I wanted,
Mm.
but it was reasonably well paid. It involved going round GPs, explaining
Right.
about drugs, and trying to
Okay.
persuade them to use the drugs that we were producing. But
Okay.
the recruiter said to me, David, I'll offer you this job,
Uh,
but it's not really you. I know you
okay.
could do it, but it's not really you.
Uh,
She was almost saying to me, I'll give you the job, but you're worth something different.
uh-huh. Okay.
So by chance, I turned down that job.
Mm.
And a few weeks later, I got offered a job in human resource management. And
Okay.
that's where I spent the next 40 years of my career in different organizations.
Very good. They say the life changes according to the uh, years of what we live, where we live, and what
Yeah,
needed to
yeah.
have. Mm.
And I know I know now that there are signposts in your life from time to time,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm.
sort of spiritual signposts, if you like.
Ah,
And one of the tricks is to see the signposts when they're in front of your eyes.
yes, that's true. Yeah.
And I've always been so grateful that not only did she say that, but I could read the signposts too.
Mm, very good. So let's talk about coming to Buddhism. Did you ever had any thought about Buddhism, or did you ever come across any Buddhism or Buddhist meditation, and how you're drawn to it?
The first
Like before
answer is
coming to the end.
uh-huh. The
Mm,
first answer is no, because going back to what I've just said, I was brought up
yeah.
Church of England. And
Yes.
just to put that in context, for as long as I could remember until I was probably 16, 17 years old, we
Mm,
went to church on a Sunday at least once. In my younger days, I was packed off to Sunday school, just
mm,
like our young children are today at the centre.
mm-hmm,
Um, I was in the school choir, which meant
mm-hmm,
also singing at the church. Uh,
mm,
every Sunday, special events during the week, um, special events during the year like Easter and Christmas.
mm,
And so I was brought up in an entirely Church of England environment. And in many ways, that was fine, absolutely fine. Um, through that, I was taught values, I think, uh,
mm-hmm.
family values and personal values, many of
Mm,
which I've taken with me through my life.
yeah.
So, some of which I've broken, by the way, as well along the way. But that was a good period. It was a very stable period in my life.
Uh-huh.
So in my early years, and then of course, the flying and RAF was my whole life for a number of
Yeah.
years, took up every spare minute. And then,
Mm,
of course, I married and we had a child fairly early on in my life, and family life took over.
yeah.
And I suppose I drifted away from any sort of spiritual life
Mm.
Until I met you, actually.
Yeah.
In fact, no, before that, until I met Leana.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Until I met Leana.
Mm.
My life had become, through a period of 30 years, maybe 40 years,
Mm.
quite a material life.
Mm. Okay, I remember that was interfaith event, and I was invited to give a talk on introduction to Buddhism in that church. I forgot the church name, somewhere in Aberdeen, West End, somewhere.
I think it was
And
St. Mary's, maybe.
possibly, yes. And then after the talk, you and Lena came to speak with me. Unitarian Church. Thank you, Lena, for correcting us. So Unitarian Church, and you listen the talk. So I would say that would be the first time that you have heard on a Buddhist practice or a Buddhist, maybe meeting a Buddhist monk. What was your first impression?
Um, One of interest. As you know, in the past, I've been called by a monk that I was a scientist in my head.
Hmm.
Lena always says you either speak from your heart or you speak from your head. And I remember at Constitution Street, um, um, even after I'd been going there for several months, maybe even a year, one of the
Hmm.
visiting monks said, "David, you're still a scientist." and and so I guess that was the mind I came with when I first heard you speak.
Hmm.
Um, and that comes from, I think, my education, um, and the type of education I had, but also the type of training I had with the RAF,
Hmm.
and the type of work I did up until then.
Hmm.
If you like, it was a form of conditioning. And so um, I'd studied a little bit at university, sociology and psychology. And so even at the time I met you, I think it simply triggered my curiosity.
Hmm.
I think that's the best way to put it.
So, with that curiosity, then you brought you to the temple uh, twice a week
Yeah.
to practice and to learn Buddhism.
Hmm.
Uh, and obviously, those days we were still are, and we were practicing chantings in Pali language, and you were there to listen and participate those chantings. What were your impression or thoughts of why I am here, why this is weird chanting I'm listening or trying to, or is something like that? Any thoughts on that?
Honestly, I um, I think my curiosity was particularly tweaked by the meditation.
Okay.
I was I had been in the last 10 or 15 years, work had become quite stressful,
Mm-hmm.
very challenging, under different circumstances, and also my personal circumstances, family circumstances were difficult and challenging at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I'd not long before then gone through a separation and divorce. um,
Mhm.
that was quite challenging. Um, so the meditation practice, um, I have to admit, I came to with a scientific mind, and it took a few years for me to shake that off, I think.
Mm.
Um, the chanting in the Pali language, to be honest, sometimes I wondered what I was doing.
Yeah.
Um, uh, it, to begin with, it didn't connect with me at all.
Yeah.
Um, and that probably showed at times, I'm bound to
Yeah.
say. Um,
Yeah.
the uh, It didn't help, of course, that at that time we hadn't studied Buddhism and Buddhist teaching, other
Mhm.
than the short teachings that you were giving at that time.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't able to put the chanting into context in the way I
Mhm.
think now you need to.
Mhm.
Um, so I got more from the meditation practice, mindfulness
Mhm.
meditation practice,
Mhm.
than the chanting. And it was the mindfulness meditation practice that made a huge difference to my life in the
Mhm.
years beyond that.
Yeah. So, does that mean that that was the beginning of coming to know about mindfulness meditation in your life? I believe that Lena had taught you a little bit.
Yes, um, Lena's been very influential on my life in a positive way, I might add. Like everyone else, we have disagreements over some things from time to time, like all couples do.
Mhm.
Um, but Lena's been my partner on the journey,
Mm.
um, a sort of domestic guide on the journey when we haven't been coming to the centre.
Mm.
Um, and although it took me quite a long time to fully connect with mindfulness meditation and how it can be a real influence on your life, once I made that connection, it really, um, I really saw the value, not just for myself, but for others.
Mm.
Um, and I really saw how, in my own life, it could make a difference to the challenges of my personal life and to the challenges of my work life as well.
Mm. Okay. So, in that case, when you started learning meditation, obviously you started learning basic Buddhism as well. In your uh, thought, what is Buddhism? What would you interpret, or what would you say about Buddhism?
What is Buddhism?
Mm.
It's a teaching, an ancient
Mm.
teaching that the modern world is now trying to prove scientifically, but which the
Mm.
Buddha observed simply by observing life.
Mm.
And it's a practice of bringing together your body, heart, and mind in one place, not just for the purpose of meditation on the stool or the chair, but for the purpose of um, developing positive, helpful, wholesome way of living.
Mm.
And
So,
and bringing your mind, body, and breath together in one place. When by and large in the modern world, the body works over there while the mind's working somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a meanwhile, throughout this time of journey with the Buddhism and the temple, you have done 3 different levels of courses. The last, the advanced one, we haven't had any chance to have a test yet, but
Yeah.
you have the first, second tests. And what do you say about those studies on a Buddhism?
Um, uh, to begin with, I found them quite academic.
Okay.
Because it took quite a time to connect again the teachings and the language, because all of the topics, of course, have a label in another language, which isn't easy to follow. But once I got over that, it allowed me, and I think others, to put some of the earlier teaching and practice from yourself into the wider context of Buddhist philosophy and teaching. If you like, there's a broader angle to Buddhism, I think, that those who just practice mindfulness meditation are missing. If you like, the values-based element and the practical teaching that sits behind it. That doesn't mean that people can't get great value out of learning and practicing mindfulness meditation with a teacher. But I think having the knowledge of all that sits behind it as a religion or philosophy, and I prefer to use philosophy rather than religion, as a philosophy of the path, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and all the teachings that sit beyond that, I think bring a bigger quality to the understanding of mindfulness meditation in practice. But
Okay.
I have to say it was tough to learn and to remember.
Yeah.
And sometimes little crib notes came in handy.
Yeah.
However, doing those exams, as we called them, did require you to learn.
Yeah.
And that learning expanded our knowledge and understanding of what we were doing in practice.
Yeah. Actually, all those 3 different levels of books that we studied, the monk who compiled it under the supervision of the King Rama V at that time in Thailand, he passed away 100 years ago.
Wow.
And yesterday, so no, on the 2nd, I think, 2nd or 3rd of August was 100 years of his passing away. And on that occasion, UNESCO gave a title called special something. The UNESCO recognized his contribution to create a language and give a new books to learn, and also so many other other things in Thai community and Thai society, which because of he was a supreme patriarch of Thai Sangha at that time, and he was able to transform, socially, educationally, linguistically, and so much. And with that, he
Mhm.
was recognized by the UNESCO, and was celebrated his life a few days ago.
Wow,
So that was the book that we used
that's
to
right.
study. Yeah, that was the book that we studied. And we did manage to finish all three levels. And I must say that you and Elena are the first students that I have taught all these three levels. And after this, we haven't started even the first level, this the basic one, elementary one. We haven't
Mhm.
started yet for anybody else. So uh, in a
And
way, we just need to go back again, and then introducing it again.
mhm.
So
In fact, I'm reminded while you're talking, Ajahn, I typed up all the notes from those classes,
uh,
and I said I would give them to you. I never have. So
yeah,
forgive me, please. I will make sure you get them soon.
no worries. So here, Elena just texting saying that now I will come back to this question later on, that now you're helping Achan to teach people in Aberdeen, and not only in Aberdeen, but also helping other parts as well. So now we, and then after you have studied Buddhism and coming to the temple and practicing meditation, and you have developed your meditation practices, and then over this period of a time, you are now able to help teaching and helping others to learn the meditation. So in this case, can you tell us what meditation is?
This is like an exam. Um, Meditation is the practice of knowing,
Hmm?
um, of remembering to know. Um, um, Meditation is the practice of concentration on a particular object. The way I describe it, to get knowing the object as your best friend.
Hmm.
All things change, and though meditation is the practice of noting change in the object, it can be any
Hmm.
object. That meditation is the practice of observing and knowing an object until you know it as you would know your best friend.
Hmm.
Um, and as I've said, you can meditate on any object. We practice on the breath
Hmm.
for a number of reasons, not least of which um, um, the breath is always with you. It's always there to meditate on.
Hmm. Okay. Now, how would you say that the meditation has helped you in your life to deal with difficulties, or to deal with situations, or did meditation help you to be a happy man?
It certainly helped me to be a more calm person, that's for sure,
Okay.
and to cope with life's crises um, in a more thoughtful way, in a more um, in the way of seeing things as they are rather than how I would want them to be. Um, just to come back to meditation, of course, the value of meditation is that over time we develop the skill not just to see our breath as it truly is, bringing mind, body, and breath together, but to take that skill out into other aspects of our lives, seeing things as they truly are in our lives, rather than the theatre, if you like, that our life has become through conditioning over the years. I like to describe it as an onion. We have, we're born as the core of an onion, or the other way, it could be the middle ring of a tree. And over the years, we build up all these layers of conditioning by our parents, our grandparents, school, college, university, any bosses we've had in our lives, and it's influenced by difficult challenges we've had, sometimes challenges we couldn't escape from. And these rings build up over the years, and that is who I am now. And the most important benefit of mindfulness meditation, I think, is just to see that. And to recognize that we're not a permanent entity. We change like everything else, minute by minute, day by day. And so the only real way to live is with the moment you're in, rather than try to live somewhere in the future and hope and imagine the future will be like this or that, or the past should have been like this or could have been like that. So the biggest benefit for me has been to learn to, when faced with life's challenges, accept things as they are, and then deal with them in a way that's helpful, rather than reacting in a way that's unhelpful. And my son's going through difficult times and has been through 4 or 5 years, both family and work-based. And I've been so impressed that he seems to be following these principles without me training him. And in some ways, he's sort of not been terribly interested in what I've shared with him. But somehow or other, whoever he's been speaking to and learning from in Australia, he too seems to now be living in the moment, accepting things as they are, rather than how we would want them to be. And for me, that's the biggest gift.
As they say, action speaks louder than the speech. So
Maybe.
After practicing, probably he has seen positive changes in your life, in your thoughts, or possibly before meditation you will be nagging or shouting, and now after meditation become more calmer, understandable, or gentler, sensible.
Maybe,
something.
Or maybe he just had a good psychologist.
Okay. So that's very good that good to know that after the meditation, not only helping you but also helping the members of the family, and meanwhile, I must say that I'm very grateful, very grateful to have you as well, and over this past so many years. And I was like working out with all these little papers, knowing unknowingly, and teaching not without having any formats, and more like a conservative Theravadan Buddhist monk, and then and I'm so fortunate to have you on board, that helping me and helping the center to going into the right direction,
Thank you,
And
Ajahn.
putting, in a way, best way to say that, putting the center in the right direction so that no troubles come in. And not only that, you've been helping in terms of teaching and helping to teach other people as well. In the past, I would be teaching alone and sometimes can be exhausted. And now you have successfully carried out so many meditation sessions around in the city, even in a health village, in my absent, and also running another 2 courses now. So, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, how you manage, how you are finding this journey from practitioner to the instructor in a way?
Um, First of all, thank you for those comments, Ajahn. Um,
Yeah.
I think I've been very lucky, actually. A number of things have come together, which uh, probably have made it almost inevitable. Maybe another signpost.
Mm.
First of all, the support and encouragement from Lena. Um, um, I think it would have been very difficult to take this journey if we hadn't both been on a spiritual path. And sometimes those paths diverge a little bit and then they come back together again, but that's okay. Secondly, to have found a center where there was a teacher yourself, who in some ways, because the center was quite young, meant if I was going to learn and understand the practice, I would have to be persistent. I could easily have walked away when I sort of found the chanting in Pali a rather strange thing. After a year or two, when I was still being told I was a scientist. So having Lena there, having you there, the members of the community, both at Constitution Street and at the centre at West Hill, all these things came together. And of course, the challenges in my own life. How I came to go from practitioner to teacher, I can't even remember I can't even remember it, Jan. All I remember is doing those exams, and probably, I don't know, a year or two later. It might have been a few weeks later. I don't remember. I just remember that perhaps it came from my work in human resources as well.
Yeah.
There's 2 strands to human resources. There's the technical strand, the policy, the procedures, the hiring and firing, contracts of employment, industrial relations, trade unions. And that some of that can be quite challenging sometimes. But then there's the other side, which is people development. And I spent most of my career on the first part and not a lot of my career on the second part. I employed people who knew more about human resource development than I did.
Okay.
And that's something in part I've always regretted. I would have liked to have spent more time in the area of human resources. Did quite a bit on leadership development, but that's not quite the same. And maybe it was that also that was a factor. That getting involved in helping people explore what they really want in their lives. who they really are, rather than this conditioned person that we become.
Mm.
And I think it was just a combination of circumstances. I was approaching packing work in anyway. I was likely to free up a bit more time. All those things.
Yeah. So ever since you got permission from me, I would say, yeah, got the certificate. Okay, now you can assist me teaching other people. You have taken on so much. Yeah, even in my absence, you have been teaching in Health Village and also running Credo classes. And after this pandemic came and everything stopped again, running from Facebook Live and now Zoom, as Margaret saying here. Thank you for your meditation teachings on Wednesday morning as well done. Yeah, so these are happening as well. So within this short period of time, and that again shows that how much time that you have spent practicing. If you collected information, you may remember that in the past I normally teach very strictly only on that path rather than bringing so many things. And with that, and you have got the sufficient understanding and knowledge and practice, which I am confident on that you are a good meditation teacher and a practitioner.
Thank you.
And also, what you have said very rightly, that because Leda and you, when are walking on the same path, that has given a lot of boost on developing as well. As in a Buddha, and once in a maybe you have read as well in our course second intermediate class. There's a four dhammas that a family should have in order to have a good family relationship. That is called, first you should have a faith together and having a similar faith, and then the second is having a equal morality, both at least a five and practicing of five precepts, and ability to give things, and forgiving and forgetting and having a wisdom. Once you have these four qualities, then obviously in a family life it will be ups and downs, but we'll able to go through with that. Now let's coming back to the current time, because we are going through this a difficult pandemic time. As you being a practitioner and also instructor, what is your advice will be for our listeners?
Oh, what would my advice be for our listeners? First of all, thank you to Margaret for your comment there. I think my advice would be to not make things complicated, to keep things simple. The pandemic isn't over. We still face restrictions, and even now I was reading of a new variant in a country that doesn't seem to be responsive to the vaccinations that are being used. I think we're still going to be with some of the impact of this well into next year. And that's disappointing. I've got family, grandchildren in Australia that we can't visit and almost certainly won't be able to visit for some time. Lena's mother. And Lena's mother's on her own in East Ukraine. And visiting her is becoming extremely challenging at the moment too. So life anyway was very complicated. And the pandemic has simply made it even more complicated than it was before. And our lives, our man-made lives, will continue to be complicated. I think so anyway. Um, all the main factors in our lives have never disappeared. Um, wars are still being fought around the world, civil wars. Politics still goes on in all its forms. One rule for one and another rule for others. The economics of the planet haven't changed very much. So my advice, I think, will be to keep life simple as you can. And that for me means clearly living with people around you who are like-minded people. Secondly, trying to avoid the media, trying to avoid technology that you don't have to use. The media, to me, the media and technology are the cause of so much suffering. They're there to be used, and technology, when it works for our benefit, works very well. But unfortunately, so much of it is being used for wrong purposes. And in this more simple world I'm describing, living a more simple life, a helpful life, a thoughtful life, use the practice of mindfulness meditation practice to keep renewing the calmness of the mind. For those who have come to it recently, keep up the practice. The calmness of the mind will come if you have regular practice and good teacher.
Yeah.
And the other thing I would say is look to those you love and care for. And make sure that the compassion you develop, the caring you develop, is focused on those who you love and care for. And not forgetting the wider community that support us.
I think that's very important that you picked on saying that do not read too much media things that can mislead. And I still met so many people talking about this pandemic is misleading, not true. And I normally say that it's a fake until you get it. So better be careful and better be mindful and better be safe, and which is so-called new norm. So we have to learn to deal with it and go ahead with that. And mindfulness meditation obviously helping. And obviously throughout this time, you and me have come across with so many people having troubles, both physically, mentally, and how much the meditation is helping them. Would you like to share something on this topic in this aspect of experience?
Yes, indeed. And as you know, we occasionally get emails from people who say things like they wouldn't have got through the pandemic without your broadcasts and the courses and the online stuff we've been doing. And that's obviously wonderful because there's no benefit in sitting on a cushion meditating if you cannot take the development of awareness and calmness and knowing and understanding into everyday life. One of the things that's really impressed me, Ajahn, you know, we're working at the moment, just finishing a course with some people who are in alcohol and drug recovery in Aberdeen. And what's really impressed me, we all have this image of alcohol and drug abusers.
Mm-hmm.
An image that's quite often reinforced by the media,
Mm-hmm.
because the media only covers those who rob and steal.
Yeah.
The media doesn't really give much time to people who are doing really good things in their lives, having progressed on the road to recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And we've met, although the numbers are small, we've met um, really good people
Mm.
who have started down the road to sorting their lives.
Yeah.
And not only that, are engaging in mindfulness, meditation, teaching, and practice
Yeah.
with a real understanding now, because they can see the mess their monkey minds were in.
Mm.
They've experienced it.
Yeah.
Their families have experienced it. And they can look back and see the positive difference in a quite dramatic way
Mm. Yeah.
that someone like I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate in my life,
Yeah.
very, very fortunate in my life. And uh, they're the real success stories, the people who make that transition. Of course, we have others that have anxiety and depression and stress, panic attacks. And by learning mindfulness meditation, they can transform their lives in a positive way. But
Yeah.
the really big success stories are the people who have gone from the really bottom, hit rock bottom, and have found the path
Yeah.
um, to rebuild their lives in a really positive way.
Yeah. So this is the personal journey with David. Unfortunately, we have to end here. Although there are so many stories and experiences that we can talk, and obviously this is not the end. Hopefully, in the future, we will come back again with a different aspects. And if anyone has got any particular subject or matter that you would like us to discuss, we will come back again. But today is just a personal journey with the David, that from born in Liverpool and a good fan of a football club in there, and end up being in Aberdeenshire and working over 30 years, and finally coming to Buddhism and a Buddhist practice, and now helping so many people during this pandemic time, and also helping at the center and running center properly, putting the center in the right way, and also running some other courses as well. Before we say goodbye, David, do you want to say anything for our audience? We have Margaret, Colin, Lena, and Craig Creed, and Dhammapin team, and few others. So at the moment, 4 people are watching.
Okay, I would first of all just say thank you to everyone who supported me. Um,
Hmm.
I used to be quite an individual sort of person in my younger days, um, but we're all interconnected. We're all and in fact, the pandemic has shown that splendidly. Um, and all I would say is thank you for the support other people have given me, and invite them to continue to support others, as I know so many do.
Okay, so thank you very much. And meanwhile, just let everyone know that we are also going to run few courses in the city, and a few courses is still going on live. So just stay tuning in, and you will get more information on those. And lastly, but not at the end, continue practicing. Be mindful and continue practicing. No big deal. Take your time, and good night. In a few moments time, we're going to have a evening chanting. You're most welcome, and also would like to thank you for thank you, David, our special guest for tonight, and his stories and experiences. I hope everybody enjoyed, and we'll see you next week on Friday at the same time at 6 o'clock. Until
Thank you,
then,
everyone. Thank you.
and thank you, everyone. Satu.